I kind of wrestled with God for several months there on being disappointed. But the thing that kept coming back to me in that process and throughout a lot of things was a sense that God just asked me the question, when I'm not the God you want me to be, will you let me be the God you need me to be?
Welcome to the Daron Earlewine podcast, where we awaken you to become who you were born to be. Here's your host, Daron Earlewine.
Hey, welcome back to the Daron Earlewine podcast. I'm your host, Daron Earlewine. It works out well if it's called my podcast that I would be here. If it weren't, it would be odd. It would be the Daron Earlewine podcast hosted by some random, but it's not. It's me. So glad to be back with you guys. Gonna give myself a terrible laugh track on that one for no good reason, because it wasn't even a good opening joke. Episode 42. Today we're sitting down with Dave Mullins, also known as David Mullins, if he wants to be more formal. And Dave and I got a chance to work together for 4 years when I was at East 91st Street Christian Church about a decade ago. And this one's going to be good. I know you got to be saying to yourself, Daron, when's the intro going to happen where you're going to be like, this one kind of sucks, guys, go ahead and skip it. It's not going to happen because we just have that good a guest on here. And Dave is going to take you to a place that you're going to be like, okay, yep, I needed that today, even more than I knew I did. And here's the big question. Here's the big question today. It's a long sentence. I think maybe a compound sentence. It's probably not grammatically correct, but follow me. When you aren't, when it isn't, and when he doesn't do what we want or thought he should, can I still become who I was created to be, submit to his plan, and trust his presence? We're going to walk through this, guys, the fact that there are just times in life, okay, when you aren't what you could be or what you maybe want to be. It's just bottom line. You just aren't. There are going to be other situations where it just isn't what you want it to be. The situationally experience, the thing that you're in, it is not what you want it to be. And there are going to be times wrapped up in all of that when Jesus doesn't do what you think he should, what you think he could, or what you want him to do. And when we're in that moment, here's the crazy part. Sometimes, and as Dave's going to walk us through, sometimes all three of those are happening at the exact same time. Wait a second, I'm not who I thought I was. Wait a second, this isn't the way it should be going. And wait, where the heck is God doing what I think he's supposed to be doing in this moment? It's in that moment. And if we're honest, we're actually in these kind of moments way more often than we think we are. But it's when we're in these moments that the whole theme of this podcast comes through 10 times, volume up to 11, right? That I am actually made on purpose and for a purpose, that God is for me, not against me, that he's near, he's not far from me. And in those moments that I can become who I was born to be. And in those moments I can submit to his plan. And in those moments I can still trust his presence. So important. Let me hit you with 3 thoughts here. First and foremost, before I do that, let me say thank you for downloading the podcast. Thank you for leaving a review. Thank you for subscribing to the channel, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, or on Apple. Thank you for sharing it with friends, neighbors, maybe a couple enemies that need to know that God's for them, not against them. They need to know that they were made on purpose and for a purpose. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for reaching out. I love hearing from you guys. Here's some thoughts I want to bring on this big quote, okay? And then we're going to jump in to the conversation with Dave Mullins. Is this the first thought, that this idea of what happens when you aren't who you thought you could be or you should be? Here's the truth I want to hit you with. And this may sound harsh, but I think it's true. In fact, I know it's true. Here's the deal. You can't be anything you want or dream to be. You say, Daron, that does not sound inspiring. And my grandma says something different. My grandma told me I could be anything I want to be. Well, your grandma's a liar. Okay, she may be good with baked goods, but she's a liar if she told you you could be anything you want to be. Because let me tell you what I can't be. I can't be an NBA basketball player, okay? Now, I've got a great purpose in life. God's for me. He's not against me. He's near me. He's not far away. He's created me on purpose and for purpose. Guess what that purpose isn't? NBA basketball. Guess what else I can't be? A fighter pilot. Thought that would have been cool. I would have taken fighter pilot. Here's a problem. I'm legally blind, okay? Now, I had to have LASIK fix them, but since I was a kid, glasses, you can't have correcting vision and fly an airplane. So here's the deal. I can't become anything that I want or dream to be. And what Dave's going to take us through is that within this understanding of stepping into God's call for our life, there are limitations, and that's okay. Now, there may be some disappointment when you realize I was really dreaming of fill in the blank. I was really hoping that God's plan for my life was that I would be like this. And then you begin to realize I'm not going to be like this because I'm like this. And although that can bring a level of humility, it opens the opportunity for great courage. The courage to be who you are, to break the mold, right? Dave's going to take us through college with himself, a college moment where he was told by an influential professor in his life, you aren't cut out for ministry. You're not going to succeed in this. And so what do you do when you get to a moment when people predict your failure? What do you do when people don't believe in who they see you becoming? For one, you got to embrace some of the limitations that are actually in your life, but then you got to give yourself permission to be yourself and to submit to how the Spirit of God is guiding and directing you, to not necessarily fit in and be like everybody else, but actually embrace the limitations, but still step into becoming who you were created to be. Because you can't be anything you want to be, but you can be who God's created you to be. And Dave's going to take us through that in a very cool way. And I want you to get compassionately curious about that. Do you need to embrace some limitations? Go, you know, I probably am never going to be like that guy, or I'm never going to be like that girl, or that's probably not in the cards for me. But that doesn't mean that my life has any less purpose or meaning or design behind it. I just got to get real with who I am and who God's created me to be. Here's the second thought that we're going to hit with Dave, right? Is this one. Is most of your expectations won't be met in life. What? Right? Most of your expectations won't be met in life. And Dave's going to hit a point right towards the end of the podcast. So stick through it through the end, because the last 10 minutes is when it just starts to get solid gold. I mean, it's great the whole way through, but I forgot some of the stuff that Dave said towards the end. I went back and reviewed, and I was like, holy crap, this is so good. Because this is Dave's quote. So good. Is the moment that he sensed that God asked him this: when I'm not the God you want me to be, will you let me be the God you need me to be? So good. Dave's going to take us to this understanding that so much in life, that our disappointments in life aren't actually so much about the thing that's disappointing us. It's more about the expectations we bring. And so as you listen to this, I want you to take some time and reflect back through, where are some points that you felt like God isn't what I wanted him to be? God has disappointed me. Dave's going to unpack this idea of, and we talked about a couple episodes ago, I gave as a teaser, I gave you guys right about the understanding of the disappointing Messiah, that there was almost nobody that Jesus interacted with that he didn't disappoint their expectations in some way or the other. And he's going to do the same thing to you. He probably already has. You may be in a place right now, like the opening sentence, right? When you aren't, and when it isn't, and when he doesn't do what you thought or he could or he should do, it's in these moments where you wonder, he's not being the God that I thought he was going to be. He's not matching the expectation I brought to what he would do in this situation. But do I have the faith to trust him, to allow him to be the Messiah that I need him to be right now? We're going to dig into it. I want you to think about that one. Here's the last one I want to hit you with is this. Most of your expectations won't be met. And the third thought is this, is that God is going to disappoint you. I mean, those are kind of, I already kind of to kind of tip my hand on this one, but he is. And that, I'm not being sacrilegious in that at all. It's just, that's the bottom line, is God is going to disappoint you because you have expectations that God would do what you want him to do. And he's not going to fit in your box, because he's God. And guess what? That is such good news. At the end of the interview, Dave says this one. He said this one. I almost just wanted to stop the podcast because it was so good. But he said this. He says, the reality is the God that I want in most situations probably has no power to save me. It's so good. God is so powerful and mysterious and at work in our life, and he is always for us. He always has our best interest at heart. He is always near us, but that does not mean he's always going to meet the expectations that we have for him. And it's in those moments when God's not the God we want him to be in that situation, we have to ask ourselves if we'll let him be the God we need him to be. You guys are going to love this episode. It's deep waters, and it's going to bring you to some really cool places. And I just want to thank you so much for listening to the podcast. And if you've been listening to it for a while, I want to say thank you. And then I want to invite you to take a step from being a listener to actually being an investor. The Daron Earlewine podcast is a part of Blackbird Mission, a nonprofit ministry that I started 10 years ago to awaken people to become who they were born to be. And this summer, we're just doing a push to invite you as podcast listeners to help us expand the reach of the podcast and the impact of the ministry. And we're asking you to consider doing that with our $40 easy give plan. It may sound cheesy, but it's just a great way to say it, to join us for just over $1 a day to help us expand the reach of the podcast, to be able to continue to put the episodes out and to move our ministry forward. We're trying to close up a financial gap that we have, and we're asking you to help us this summer. If you feel like that's something God would be nudging you to do, if it's not where you are right now financially, you're brand new to the podcast, don't worry, just fast forward through this part. But if you've been with us for a while and you want to see this ministry and this podcast expand, you can just go to blackbirdmission.com. /give, and you can go to the select donation fund. There's a drop down window and choose the Daron Earlewine podcast. You do so, I'm going to send you one of our cool Daron Earlewine made on purpose and for a purpose coffee mugs, and you'll be getting monthly updates for us and access into the inner workings, kind of behind the scenes of what goes on here at the podcast and with Blackbird Mission. And so if you want to do that, once again, head over to blackbirdmission.com /give and select the drop down menu for the Daron Earlewine podcast. Commercial over. Let's get to the interview. I love it. I love my friend Dave Mullins. You're going to love him after you listen to this interview. All right. I've talked too long. Let's get right to the interview. Here we go. Dave Mullins, right here on the Daron Earlewine podcast. Hey guys, I'm excited to sit down today with a good friend of mine, Dave Mullins. And Dave, we worked together for 4 years, back from 2008 to 2012 at East 91st Street Christian Church here in Indianapolis. And Dave was like my go-to sage, like wise partner in crime and teaching partner. And Dave, some of our sessions, writing sermon series and just trying to really discern what God was saying to the church and how we could communicate that well were literally some of my favorite moments in those 4 years, and a vibe with people that I try to replicate even to today. And man, I love you, and I'm stoked to talk to you on the podcast today.
Yeah, it's great to be on. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, dude. So we've gone separate ways since 2012. Give us an update, kind of where you are right now, what you're doing.
Yeah, I am in Kingsport, Tennessee, which is Upper East Tennessee, up in the kind of corner between North Carolina and Virginia. And I am the lead preaching minister at Colonial Heights Christian Church here. So
phenomenal.
Been here for a little over 3 years now.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So Dave, some people may know the last name and maybe thinking to themselves, Mullins, I've heard Mullins before. You are the younger brother of Rich Mullins, who, very influential Christian artist, back, in the 80s and into the 90s really too. And there's a movie, actually when we were working together at East 91st Street, one of my friends of a friend came to us and said, hey, I really want to make this movie about Rich Mullins. And I remember getting you guys connected, and they ended up making the movie, which was called Ragamuffin. Really cool movie. You actually, I think, is that your acting debut in the movie, Dave?
Yeah. Yeah. I think first and almost last. Yeah.
Because the movie basically takes a look at your brother's life and your family's life, but you're the DJ that's interviewing Rich and kind of unpacking his story, and It was cool to watch, and then to see different family members that were part of the cast, which is pretty cool. But let's unpack a little bit, Dave, because you have been in traditional ministry settings. Obviously, when we were together at East 91st Street, it was a large mega church in Indianapolis. But one thing I love about it is that you've always had, and I don't know if we want to borrow a term, from your brother, but a kind of a ragamuffin, I guess, spirit, in that you've worked in traditional church settings and in different times, but there's a rogue and I think almost prophetic, just earthiness to the way you follow Jesus that I've always admired and loved. And let's kind of maybe go back and talk about, where that may have started and where it came from. And so
Sure.
let's go back to the beginnings on the Mullins farm, right?
Yeah.
In eastern Indiana, correct?
Yep. Just north of Richmond.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So your family, I mean, was faith, you grew up basically a Christian home the whole time? I mean, would be what you would say?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my earliest memories are either family or church.
Yeah.
Or both. So yeah, I have a feeling I was probably in church by the time I was a week old. I don't know. But yeah, I'm in my growing up, it never even crossed my mind to ask if we were going to church or to, hey, I don't think I'm going to go this week. It was just, no, you're breathing, you're going. So
Yes.
yeah.
And so early on, I mean, what were aspirations for you, dreams as a kid? I mean, I know that your older brother was involved in music and music ministry and became, like I said, influential artist. But what did little Dave Mullins want to become when he got older?
Yeah. A running back for the Dallas Cowboys.
I like that. Dave.
Yep. That was the plan. I was going to be a star in the NFL, but when you are 98 pounds as a freshman in high school and 130 when you graduate, the NFL kind of that dream died early.
Probably not in the cards.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say I was one of those kids that for most of my growing up, I could tell you a whole lot more what I knew I did not want to do.
Okay.
Than what I wanted to do.
What was on that list?
Work. Pretty much. No, I knew like working at a factory or do the same thing every day, the same way, stand on an assembly line and just, I knew that was not really going to be a possibility, or I didn't think it would be. I didn't, I grew up we had a tree farm while I was growing up, and I did not like that at all. And so I knew that wasn't a real possibility. And so, yeah, there was, as a matter of fact, it was about halfway through my senior year before I really had a sense of settled on having a sense of what I was going to do. And that was, my mom asked me one day what I was going to do when I graduated, because it was I'm sure it was after Christmas of my senior year. And I was like, I don't really know. And there's 16 years between me and my oldest sister. I'm the baby. So when you figure that up, mom had kids at home for a long time. I think she was ready for empty nest. And as only a mom can, she said, well, don't you think it's time you figure it out?
It's about time you leave.
Yeah, I think she, was saying, you don't have to go anywhere in particular, but you got to go. So I started, that's when I actually, probably for the first time, really spent much time thinking about it and praying about it. My faith was important to me all through growing up. And I don't know if you've ever had an experience where you realize something that you've always known, but that's how I experienced a sense of, I'm supposed to go into ministry. It just, as soon as I stopped and really started evaluating and went, wait, what am I here for? It was really obvious, really fast. So, from just my experiences, I think, looking at how I was gifted, what I was able to do, all those things just kind of pointed to some kind of ministry. I didn't know what kind, but something, and I still don't know what kind exactly. So,
What was the step? What were the steps that you started taking for that pursuit at that point, Dave?
Well, I mean, I think some of those steps were already in place.
Yeah.
Just growing up, and I really wasn't a kid who went to youth group and went to church and went to Sunday school because I had to be there, because I was made to be there, or I really did see the value of it. And so I felt like I had a pretty good understanding of the scriptures by the time I graduated high school, simply because, every week for 18 years, hearing the stories and having conversations about what does this mean? How do you apply it to your life? So that had all been huge. Watching a great group of people in the church that I grew up in, a little bitty country church, but watching how they lived out their faith and walked through things, I think had been a huge preparation. And then my official prep, after I graduated high school, I went to Johnson Bible College outside Knoxville, Tennessee, and got my undergraduate degree there. So
at this point, Dave, because you're the younger brother, of Rich, at how, and what's your age difference with you guys?
There's 12 years.
12. So, I mean, like in kind of your formative years, I mean, I me in math, I can't do the math this quick, but during like your formative, like teenage years, I mean, is that when Rich is really blowing up on a national like scene?
It was a little bit later than that, that he was on a national scene, but so he went to college when I was going to first grade.
Okay.
And while he was at college, he formed a music group. And, I can remember a lot of times going down to Cincinnati to see them do concerts, and they were pretty booked really regularly throughout kind of the Midwest.
Yeah.
So from the time, that I was in first grade, he was, especially for a first grader, he seemed like he was well known and kind of a big deal, to looking up to your brother. And then it kind of progressed as I got older. So, but he really kind of, by the time he hit more in the national awareness, I was in college.
Okay. And it was that, I mean, did you feel like, I don't want to do that. I'm going to try to be a musician too. I'm going to follow in his footsteps. I mean, was that something you wanted to do, or did you ever think, maybe I'll go and I'll help his ministry somehow, or was it something you really kind of felt like, I'm going to chart my own course?
I would both. I would say. I think especially there were a few times when at college I was told that I didn't belong in the ministry, that I'd never make it in ministry. I kind of went, well, I guess I can just drop out and maybe I go work with Rich and be a roadie or figure something out. Because who needs a degree anyway? Fortunately, I was married by then, and my wife was like, no, we're not going to do that. You're going to do what you're told, and you're going to graduate. And there were times that, but I really didn't, I love music, but I did not have the dedication to really develop it all that well.
Sure. Right.
For sure. Right. Not enough to, it was definitely what he was wired for and created for, but not me. So, yeah.
Dave, let's go back to the great advice you got in college that maybe ministry wasn't for you. Because I remember, I can't remember if it was on graduation day. It was towards the end of my senior year. I remember one of my professors at Indiana Wesleyan, will omit the name to protect the guilty. I remember him coming up to me and being like, you know what, Earlewine, your freshman year, man, I really used to hate you, but you've turned out all right. And I remember being like what? Like, I thought you were awesome. Like, I know I slept through a lot of your classes, but I mean, when I was awake, I was really there. So I definitely could have probably made a few, most likely to not succeed lists in that college. But what was it about you in college that people were like, maybe you're not cut from the same cloth here for the traditional ministry roles?
Well, I think the professor who he was a preaching professor there at Johnson, and he had a very defined process that was full of paperwork for developing a sermon. And it started with a brainstorming sheet, and you just get a piece of paper and you just write out everything you think of, draw pictures, spiderweb scriptures, just kind of just dream on paper. Well,
Right.
I do that, but I don't do it on paper.
Right.
I'm terrible on paper. I'm terrible at a desk. And then there's a context sheet where you read the commentaries and then you answer certain questions. You do the same context sheet for every sermon, and what does this mean? And which again, I'm not knocking the process that he had, but it was very paper driven, which I understand in college.
Sure.
Well, and then an analysis sheet, and then you had something that you brought it all together, and then you started working on your outline and filling it in and doing all of that. And my brain just would not function that way.
Yeah.
It kind of came to a head. We were doing an assignment or a series of assignments working in Revelation, and he said, I want an extra hour of study for this next sermon or whatever it was that was due, and I probably put in, I don't remember now, but I'm going to say 30 minutes, and turned in my notes. And he called me into his office shortly thereafter and said, "Was this an hour?" And I said, "No, it was probably 30 minutes, well, you lied, because you turned this in as an hour of study. So I really could have you expelled because you're being dishonest." And I'm like, man, I know guys who walking up the hill stopped at the library, grabbed a commentary, threw it on a copy machine, copied a few pages, and got highlighter and just randomly highlighted sections,
Right.
And I'm like, what is going on? And yeah, he just kind of ripped me and told me that I did everything by the seat of my pants and was glib, and that I wouldn't be in the ministry 5 years after graduation. I'd never be at a church more than 3 years because I didn't study. And I'm like, yeah, it was a pretty crushing. It had the effect of making me really, really mad and really crushing all at the same time. So
I think about it though, Dave, that the thing that, no doubt about it, I can absolutely see how that would be that way. But I know that in the years we've spent together, how passionate I am about helping people understand, the uniqueness the way guys created them and their DNA is to have such a small view. And I get it as a professor. You've got your thing you do, and you're paid to teach people to do that. But to have such a small standardized view that when a kid shows, that they don't do it this exact way, that you're going to go all the way to like, hey, this is a hopeless situation, rather than saying, hey, this may look different for you because God has not created you to be like me.
Right. Yeah. I think, and I will say, that professor I know at the beginning of, I think, my junior year, made the comment at one of our first classes that he felt like, as the preaching professor there, that it was his role to weed out those who didn't belong. And I was one of the chosen. So, I and like I say, as I've gotten older, I can understand and look at it and go, yeah, I just don't think there was any way that his approach and mine, that he could see a value in mine. I didn't see a big value in his. And so, but the other thing that I think it really did was make me after being mad and being crushed, with the help of Robin, it made me really go back and go, do I believe God's called me to this? And if so, how do I figure out how God's wired me to do this instead of how do I look like you're supposed to look? But I'll say, man, I've been doing ministry for over 30 years now, and I still don't like people to know how I prepare, because it ain't the right way. So I still have that. I still prepare by going down to the gym and shooting baskets or going for a walk. Besides reading commentaries and doing those things, but it comes together in a way that it's not supposed to. So
one thing that I always loved and made me appreciate how uniquely God has created all of us, Dave, is like, for me, I never read out a transcribed, deal. I have notes, and I probably have more notes than I need because it makes me feel like secure, even though I barely look at them. Right. But like, I literally, and this is weird because there is I would say there is nothing in my life that is as organized as my sermon files are. Like, I literally have saved every sermon I think I've preached for the past 20 years. There is nothing, not even close, in my life that I have that well, like, saved. And it's kind of weird, but so it's my only organized thing in the world. But what would be funny to me is we would work on, full sermon series together and spend hours talking about what about this and what about this and remember this scripture, and like that creative process was so life-giving, and like the depth that you have and would bring meant so much to me. And what would kill me, I think would be hilarious, is like I'd go up with like my 5 pages just in case I got lost, whatever, and then you'd go up with like the scripture, you know what I mean? Handful of things scribbled on a piece of paper of your, and then I would sit there, and for, 30 minutes you'd speak, and I'd be like, what, you just did that off of this? Like, how did you get from here to there? But you did it every time. And it was like so beautiful to see that, like, it wasn't the lack of prep or depth. It's just like you did it differently, and in that way served you. And the cool part was, you being you served God and God's people really well. And I think people need to hear that there's permission to be who God's created you to be. This is not a standardized process.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I think it's so easy to look at people who do and serve God in different ways and do it really well, and to get, obsessed with the process that they go through to do it. Not that you can't learn things from those things.
Yes.
I think that is very important, but I think finding, how has God created you? What works? And some of that just takes time too, and experimenting and going, when I first started, moved from being a youth minister to preaching, I went, wow, I probably really ought to have better notes so that I can keep files and go back and use sermons later. And so I started really trying to have closer to a manuscript form, and I couldn't preach. I would get completely hung up on, I have to say what was written on the paper.
Yeah.
And if I looked up or diverted at all, I could never find, how do I get back to it? And so what I discovered real quickly was, well, maybe writing closer to a manuscript is good in some ways to be able to go back, but I can't take it up with me when I'm speaking because I can't function that way. And then I found out I can't even take old sermons and redo them, preach them again very often. I mean, the ones that God's kind of, I think there are messages you study and you get it, and then there's some that he just puts in you.
Yes.
And those I can preach over and over and keep them fresh. But yeah, I've tried to go back and preach some old ones and go, oh, I really like that series. Let me do that one. I don't have any idea what that was about. So,
Dave, let's take it out of the context of calling real quick, because here's what I think is interesting. Your brother didn't fit in Christendom very well, right? But yet he fit really well in the kingdom of God. and you look at some of the lyrics and the songs and the just the, like, you can't listen to classic Rich Mullins stuff and not go, well, that's the heart of God in a song, right? But he didn't fit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it seems to be a trend, right? Dave Mullins didn't really fit in the traditional structure, right? But so here, what I'd love for you to do is forget about the calling piece of it. There
Yeah.
are millions of people out there that have a sense, whether they're walking with Jesus right now or they're curious, and there's a sense happening in them that there's a spiritual nature to them. They want to follow Jesus. They want to be connected, but they go, but I don't think I can fit
Yeah.
in those boxes, in that structure, whatever it is. What kind of encouragement do you give somebody that they're just like, you know what, I don't fit that, but there's something happening here that's very real?
Yeah. Well, a couple of things probably come to my mind. One is trying to evaluate what is it that doesn't fit? Because in some ways, figuring out, wait, what doesn't fit can help you figure out where you do fit. There's a lot of things that, I haven't felt like oh man, I'm the right fit for this, that, or the other, and rarely have felt that. But figuring out, wait, what is it that I'm not, can help you figure out what am I, and what do I bring to the table? The second thing that just jumped out at me, and I would say is, I think it's easy to try to, or get caught up in, do I fit here or there, and I think one of the key things is submission to God, above all of the, where do I fit in the church, or and if I'm really submitted, then I'm going to be listening for the Spirit's often really small voice that says, no, go here and do this thing, or go there and do that thing. And so for me, I think that's been kind of one of the real keys throughout my life, and for sure my ministry time, is just going, I don't know how this works, but I'm going to trust that you do.
Yeah.
And if you call me into a place that I feel really uncomfortable and like I don't fit, I would say our time together at East 91st Street, I really didn't fit there very well. I very much am more a blue collar, that was very white collar, wealthy church. And I'm just a country boy from outside Indiana, not even a good country boy. I don't fit with the country boys either completely. So, but I also go, man, I think when you look at the amount of impact that God had through the church in some really difficult times when we were there serving together, well, maybe I did fit.
Yeah.
In the kingdom.
Yeah.
And then, it turns out I really didn't fit at that church. So, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But so then I went to work for a rich guy who wanted to do movies and all kinds of stuff, and end up being a corporate pastor and working at a private Christian school, and went, man, I for sure don't fit here. But again, I think the sense of God moving and working is what pulled that all together. So
I think it comes back to what you said there about the submission part, Dave, because it's like, and that's so much a part of it is like, you could say, well, somebody could say like, well, okay, so you guys talking about like, I don't fit because I don't really like to do anything the Bible says. Like, we're not saying that, right? Like,
right.
No, you need to submit yourself to the Spirit of God, and there's a love relationship connection here where like you understand, identity and who you are in Him, and that there is an obedience submission part of it. So it's not like I'm just opting out and picking what I want to be about.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
But understanding that the connection, like you may not have to fit with them, because the good news is like he fits in you, right? And learning to submit to that is a beautiful journey. And for you, like I said, it's taking you on some crazy adventures, but he's been faithful in each one of them. And there's things you've learned and discovered and contributed in every one of those circles. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the things there too is recognizing, wait, I think it's so easy to go, oh, God created me. He knit me together in my mother's womb. He did all these things. He made me special for, he created me with good works that he planned for me to do before the foundations of the world, all of those things. And to go, oh, I see the great pieces of that, and to not recognize there's also limiting factors there. He created me to be a preacher, so I didn't turn out to be 6'4" and 240 and able to play in the NFL,
Right.
Oh, it turns out there's limitations to how he wired me. He wired me to function in ways that, I'm not ever going to be an academic. I don't think there's ever going to be a college that's going to go, we should bring him in. And I get it. Like, no, that wouldn't make a ton of sense to have maybe come in and do a one-off speaking thing, but I tend to make people mad when I do that. So, but just recognizing, no, there are limitations, but that's not.
Yeah.
Wow, that's not the end of the world. It may feel like it in the moment, but if I really have a trust in God and am submitted to him, a good thing is going, I do have limitations. I think, unfortunately, our world does not get that. I think our world goes, no, don't let anybody tell you you have limitations. I do. But there are limitations in something in order that I might be exactly what I need to be for what I was created for.
That's so good, Dave. That's so good. It's humbling, but yet it's real and it's very instructive, which oftentimes a lot of humility is, right?
Yeah.
It's a good teacher.
Yeah. So,
Dave, let's talk about this real quick. Is one of the phrases that you've used a handful of times, and you developed some teaching around it, is the idea of kind of like the disappointing Messiah, right?
Yeah.
Like when Jesus it's like, oh, you're supposed to be, oh no, that's not the deal. You're gonna and when God disappoints us, and you've been familiar and lived through this, and I'm just wondering, there's different stories you could tell, but I kind of want to go back, because maybe we unpacked this some when we worked together, but not a ton. I don't remember. But when you're in your, you're in ministry as well. You guys have been following Jesus, Christian family since, a week old. Your brother's traveling around the world, telling people about Jesus, writing hit songs, everything. And then out of nowhere, God can't protect him in a car wreck and he dies.
Yeah.
Talk about disappointing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk about like, hey, God, Rich was kind of important. You couldn't pay attention to what's happening here. Did any of those thoughts go through your mind, or in that season for you? How disappointing, I guess, was that season, and how disappointed in God were you as you walked through that? That's a big question.
Yeah, for sure, all those thoughts went through my mind in over a few month period. Yeah, I've heard different people say, if this is how you treat your friends, it's no wonder you have so few. Wow. And that's kind of how I felt when Rich was killed, just going, he got, he was traveling overnight from Chicago to Wichita to do, as best I understand it and remember now, almost 4 years later, that he was going to do a benefit concert, I think for like a battered women's shelter or something.
Yeah.
That may not be exactly right, but best I can remember.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what in the world? You are the God who created all things. I believe in that you're able to do everything, and you didn't. This does not make any sense. And one of the things that fortunately in the family I grew up in, and in my reading of the scriptures, I didn't feel like that was something to hide from God. Job's one of my favorite books, and I love that Job, a great deal of the book is Job going, I want to make my defense before God. Come on, I'm going to take the gloves off. Let's go, God. And I love that while God answers Job through asking him a series of questions that Job can't answer, God doesn't strike him dead. He doesn't run from Job. He doesn't, how dare you?
Yeah.
When I study and look at the Gospels, I can't find anybody that asked Jesus an honest question, it seems, from the heart, that Jesus didn't engage with them. One of the things that I think I was blessed to not have was people teach me that you shouldn't say this to God. But no, this is who I am, where I am. I know it's not right, but I got nothing else, so I'm going to bring it to you.
Yes.
Because the thing that I think happens when we do that, we think somehow that I don't know what we think in that process, but what we do is we create the barrier between us and God.
Wow. Yeah.
If I can't take my anger to him, he can't address my anger. He can't go, hey, I get that you're mad. Let me speak peace into the midst of that storm. If I'm disappointed, he can't go, I know you're disappointed. Is the real problem what I have or have not done, or is the real problem what you expected? Which is, kind of the course of that sermon series is one of the things that I really try to be sure I hit every time. And that's, we think disappointment is a statement about the thing that is disappointing. Disappointment has nothing to do with the reality of that. It has everything to do with my expectations.
Oh boy.
I've gone to movies that I went, man, that's really disappointing. Usually it's because somebody told me it was great. Or I went, oh, I know the director of this, or I know who put this on, or I know the actor. This is going to be awesome. And my expectations go way up. And then it's just maybe an okay movie. And you go, oh, that was awful. Or a restaurant. Oh, you got to go eat here. And you go eat there and you go, oh man, low grade dog food. And maybe it's not, but it's not what you expected. So the disappointment, I'm not sure you can really believe in God and not be disappointed in some ways. Because the only way to not be disappointed is to have no expectation. And what a miserable faith to go, I have no expectation that God will work on my behalf. So yeah, anyway, I kind of wrestled with God for several months there on being disappointed. But the thing that kept coming back to me in that process and throughout a lot of things was a sense that God just asked me the question, when I'm not the God you want me to be, will you let me be the God you need me to be? And so often my answer and other people's answers are, no, if you're not going to be who I want you to be, then I don't want you. But what I found is this: he has never failed to be the Messiah I needed. He's often failed to be the Messiah I wanted because I want it my way. So
that's so good, Dave. So good. When it doesn't fit, when it's not fair. I mean, that's going to be perennial for all of us. We're all going to be in that moment. And that, I mean, we're going to have to let that soak in for a second. That's so needs and wants. We could talk about that all day. That's so good.
Yeah. Well, then kind of from my own experiences, I really started looking through the Gospels, and I went, man, I can't find anybody who really drew close to Jesus that wasn't disappointed in him.
Wow.
John the Baptist.
Yeah.
Are you the one, or should we look somewhere else?
I'm the one.
Hey,
Guess
I'm
what?
in jail. I was looking to I know I said you must increase and I must decrease, but I was talking retirement.
Right.
Not lose my head.
And we're family here, huh? Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Peter's denial. Just go through the list. Who drew close to Jesus? Mary and Martha. If you'd been here, my brother wouldn't have died.
Yep.
Over and over and over in different ways, but because we all have expectations, and that's not evil and wrong.
Right.
But when they are not in line with what God is actually doing, they get in the way.
And I think the true reality, Dave, that you speak to, and I know I've lived this, is if I had gotten the God that I wanted, it would always have actually been less than the God that I needed and that he is.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The God I want probably has no power to save me, because he would just say, I'm good.
Dave. You have no notes. None of this is written down. You're just dropping gold on us. So, yes, correct. So this is what Dave and I would do. We'd sit around, we'd plan sermon series. I'd be trying to write everything down, trying to get creative and ideas, whatever. And Dave would just sit back here as like a Yoda saying like super wise stuff. And I'd just steal it and take credit for it.
I probably stole it from somebody else.
About research, Dave.
Yeah.
All right. We got to land the plane, because there's been too much depth. People need to soak this in, but it's just so true for all of us in different pursuits, Dave. And there's so many different, I feel like, misconceptions that you've kind of, pulled away for people. And honestly, man, I wonder if that is the unique part of what your calling is to serve as an example and a conduit to bring truth to people, to realize when it's not what you think it could be or should be or whatever, to find the peace and the beauty of what it is, and all of its disappointing, imperfect, tragic, sometimes messy, seemingly unconnected journey, that it's exactly who he is as he's guiding and directing your life. And I don't know, you're a testament to that, and your grasp on it has been always so comforting and inspiring, guiding for me, man.
Yeah, I'm either the most pessimistic optimist you've ever been around, or the most optimistic pessimist. I'm not sure which. I kind of go back and forth, but yeah, I'm like life is going to kind of, and it just matches my experience. Life is going to hurt. And yet in the middle of it, there is a beauty and a movement of God that just, if you get too hung up in the hurt, you miss the good.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely been my walk.
Dave, tell me about the walking stick retreats. Are you still doing those?
We are, yeah. As a matter of fact, we've got one coming up the end of June, the 25th through the 27th, down outside Asheville, North Carolina. So
you tell us about those.
Yeah, it's just a retreat ministry that like Sam Howard, Kathy Sprinkle, Beth Lutz, and Damon Seacott, Steve Brummer, a bunch of us that have several of those did ministry with Rich through the years. So most of them are a lot older than me. But yeah, it's just spiritual growth retreats. It's open to anybody who kind of wants to spend a Friday through Sunday. We do worship main session stuff, some workshops, breakout things, time for you to be alone, a lot of fellowship stuff. Yeah, so we do usually 1 or 2 a year,
Okay.
in different areas of the country. So yeah, it's been really good. I love working with all the people that are on the team.
Yeah.
And they all bring a great deal of ministry experience and life experience and faith to the table in a lot of different ways. I love team approach to stuff. So I love, yeah, what we do. So
It's good stuff. If people want to get information about how to maybe register or take a look at it, how can they do that, Dave?
yeah, they go to walkingstickretreats.org.
Walking Stick Retreat Starter. We'll put it in the show notes and keep people connected to that. Dave, it's so good to talk to you.
Yeah, it's awesome to get to catch up and spend some time with you, man.
You've given people some great things to chew on and think on, and I know it's going to be helpful. I need to get down to your neck of the woods, and we'll be face to face sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on down. It's beautiful.
I love it. Dave, thank you so much. I can't wait to see you face to face, man.
Yeah, take it easy, man. Thanks for having me.
And we're back. Dave Mullins, are you kidding me? What do you do with Jesus, the disappointing Messiah? There it is, worth the price of admission, and it was free for you to download the podcast, right? You're way ahead in the game right now. I told you the question was going to be there, right? When you aren't, I mean, can you imagine being told you're stepping in? You know, Dave said he's realizing that, that this was what was true for him, stepping into ministry, and then here's somebody saying, hey, maybe not you. I had that moment I shared, right? When the professor was like, yeah, I couldn't stand you. If you remember, I don't know, 10, 15 episodes ago, sitting out with my buddy Clint Dupin, same thing. Like, hey, Clint, yeah, probably not you. And you may have been there as well where people doubt you. And here's the thing is that's okay, because it's an opportunity for you to really step into the becoming process of embracing limitations. You know what? They might be right. And that's what I think sometimes, guys, we have to let go of our propensity and how quick we get offended. Because you know what, you may have had a conversation where it was the greatest thing you could have heard. Like if I was actually just, betting my whole life on the NBA and someone came to me and were like, you know what, I'm not sure that you're cut out or that it's really in your DNA, physical or spiritual, to be in the NBA. It's the greatest thing someone can tell me. Stop wasting your life chasing something that's not within you. Because what Dave said there, and I don't want you to miss this, right, is this was a moment that he was able to come back and revisit this sense of calling. Right? Ephesians chapter 4, verse 1. Paul says, Paul, a prisoner for serving the Lord, beg you to lead a life worthy of your calling. It's one of the core scriptures that I teach when we teach spiritual DNA, right? Paul is begging us, I beg you to lead a life worthy of your calling. He's not saying, I beg you to lead a life worthy of the stuff you would really like to do. I beg you to lead a life worthy of the stuff that you in your brain think you could accomplish. Right? Do you guys remember American Idol? It's back on TV, but do you remember back when it first started years ago when they would have all the really terrible auditions, right? Like people really were so self-unaware that it's like, yeah, this is it. This is in my calling is to bring beauty through my voice to the world. And it's like, no, your calling is to never sing again so that we all don't have to right? There were some terrible situations, people that were very well-meaning and they had great intentions and they really, really believed that was their calling, but it was not. There were limitations, meaning they couldn't sing. And when we get offended when someone may be speaking truth to us, we lose the opportunity to become. So you may be at a place right now where people are doubting you like they did Dave. For Dave, it was a chance for him to come back, to revisit calling, and then to be able to embrace the process that, you know what, I'm not going to actually preach like that guy preaches. I'm not going to preach like Daron preaches. I'm going to step into the calling that God's created me for, and I'm going to do it in a unique way. And that takes courage. It's not easy. But you owe it to yourself to live a life worthy of your calling. And so if you have doubters right now, before you get offended, maybe take a minute and see, are they speaking truth you need to hear? And if at the end of that you go, you know what, it's just going to be different than they see it, because I know this is something that God's calling me to. I know that he's nudging me along in the process. And that's where we come to the next point that Dave made there is, are you willing to submit? And in that process, are you willing to submit to the opportunities God's bringing? I can remember when I was in college, I wanted so bad. I was chasing this dream to be a drummer in a band. I had my dream since I was in third grade, and guess what? I was a good drummer, so I was like, this is obviously what I'm on earth to do. But there was no opportunities. Didn't have any friends, didn't have a girlfriend, didn't have money. I had like peanut butter and some bread in my apartment in Marion, Indiana. My brother and I, one night, we were praying, like, this doesn't seem to be working. Like, we're supposed to be becoming rock stars, and we're losers. We weren't losers. I'm just saying things weren't going well. And we prayed that night and said, God, we just want to use our gifts and abilities for your glory. We'll do whatever you want us to do. And in this moment, God gave us an amazing opportunity to submit to his plan. This is actually one of the chapters in my book that I'm writing right called the book called Death of a Dream. Okay. At least that's the working title. Maybe we change it, but right now that's what it's called. And there's a chapter in the book where I tell the story where the next week, we met these guys that were in this Southern Gospel quartet, or quintet. There's like 5 of them, and they sang Southern Gospel. I didn't know what Southern Gospel was, and then I found out what Southern Gospel was, and I was like, no, thank you, not gonna do it, right? I had long hair, I was trying to be the rock star, and we were given the opportunity to travel around the nation playing music, using my ability to play drums and my brother's ability to play guitar. But they were like, yeah, here's the deal. You have to cut your hair and take out your earrings, get like a little buzz cut, and you're going to have to go buy some khakis and some sweaters. Here, you could go to Abercrombie & Fitch. And at that point in my life, as a 20-year-old kid, that sounded like the worst thing I could ever even think of. Like, wait a second, are we going to play rock and roll? No, you're going to do some worship, and then you're going to kind of back them up on some of these Southern Gospel tracks. And thank God that God's Spirit was working in me enough that I was able to humble myself enough to go get a haircut, go get some khakis and a sweater, and start traveling around with these guys. They became some of my best friends. They became the band that we put together that traveled all the world and chased after the dream that God put in my heart. But here's the deal. If I wouldn't have submitted to that nudge and be like, no, God, this is going to be my way. I'm going to do what I need to do, I would have missed that. And so this process of becoming goes through this window of submitting and allowing God to guide you in this journey to become who you were born to be. Such a good journey. Maybe you're there right now. And then that last thought, right, is to trust him even when it's not making any sense. And as we unpack there with Dave, going through the death of his brother, Rich Mullins, if you want to get an idea on the story, it's beautiful. Go find the movie Ragamuffin. I think it's on Netflix, I think, and I think you can find it in maybe even on YouTube. Great movie about Rich Mullins' life. But to get to that place where you say, you know what, like, God, where are you at? Like, I'm very disappointed by what's actually happening right now in my life. And so when you get to that place, what you have to say is, like what Dave says right there, when I'm not the God you want me to be, will you let me be the God you need me to be? And the reality is, in that moment, can you trust his presence that he is not going to disappoint? He is going to disappoint you. He's going to disappoint your expectations, but he's never going to leave you. He's never going to forsake you. He is never going to be against you. He's always for you. And even when the situation makes you feel like that is not the case, can you trust his presence and his goodness? If you're in a place that way right now, we mentioned a couple scriptures, a couple stories there on the podcast, right? And I want you to go back and revisit some of those. Get in the New Testament and look at the Jesus and John the Baptist when they were interacting towards the end of John's life. Take a look at the story with Mary and Martha and Jesus. When they're like, hey, Jesus, you're one of your best friends, Lazarus, our brother, he's dying. Could you come help? And then Jesus stays where he's at for 2 more days and he dies, right? In this moment, major disappointment, but go through and see the way that God is at work, even in their disappointment, to show that he's faithful. So good. So good. Here's the deal. When you aren't, when it isn't, and when he doesn't do what you want or think he could or should do, the question is this: can I still become who I was created to be? Can I submit to his plan? And can I trust his presence? Become, submit, and trust. Hey, if you need a little help, you need a jump start on that process, I want to send you the free 5-day Jumpstart to Purpose audio devotional. 5 quick devotionals you can listen to. It's about 5 minutes a day. You'll enjoy it, and I'll send it to you for free. Just go to IamBornToBe.com. Give us your email address. I'll send you the files for the next 5 days. IamBornToBe.com. Go there and get the 5-day jump start to purpose, and we'll help you that process of becoming, of submitting, and trusting. Thanks for listening once again to episode 42 of the Daron Earlewine podcast. Appreciate you listening. It means so much to me. Reach out to me. Email me at darren@blackbirdmission.com. You can text me at 317-550-5070. Or reach out to me on all of the socials. Just look for me, Daron Earlewine, on Facebook and on Instagram and Twitter. And until we talk again, remember this: God's for you, not against you. He's near you, not far from you. And He's created you on purpose and for a purpose. Talk to you guys next time.